Silent Stories updates. Real stories. Real emotions. Stay till the end because this story will remind you that respect is earned, not demanded. It started with flashing blue and red lights right outside my own home. That night, I had just finished a 12-hour shift, dealing with domestic disputes, a missing person report, and a highway chase that could have ended badly. I was exhausted, mentally drained, and all I wanted was a quiet night at home. My name's Sam, and I'm the county sheriff. But that night, in my own neighborhood, none of that seemed to matter. I parked my county-issued SUV in my driveway, same as always. The sun had just set, painting the sky with soft streaks of orange and pink. The neighborhood was peaceful. Dogs barking, kids playing in the distance, everything seemed normal. Until I noticed a few blinds shifting. My neighbors were watching me, whispering to each other. I brushed it off, thinking maybe they were just curious. But 10 minutes later, two patrol cars pulled up in front of my house. Lights flashing, radios crackling. Officers stepped out, hands near their belts, scanning the area. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, waiting for the punchline. The younger deputy called out, "Sir, can we talk to you for a minute?" I recognized him immediately. Deputy Harris, one of my newer recruits. But the poor guy didn't recognize me in jeans and a t-shirt. "Sure," I said calmly. "What's going on?" He flipped open his notepad. "We got a call about a suspicious vehicle parked in this driveway, possibly trespassing." I stared at him for a second, trying not to laugh. "A suspicious vehicle?" I said, pointing to the SUV. "That's my county vehicle. I live here." Harris blinked, confusion flickering across his face. Then, realization hit him like a train. "Sheriff, oh man." Before he could finish, another voice cut through the air. "There she is," Harris whispered under his breath. Walking toward us, clipboard in hand, was Carol, the HOA president. She was the self-proclaimed guardian of the neighborhood's perfection. The kind of woman who believed she owned every blade of grass in sight. She wore her power like a crown and her rules like armor. "Officers," she said, in a voice dripping with authority. "That's the vehicle I called about. It's been parked here all week, and it violates the HOA's regulations." I turned to face her, keeping my tone polite. "Evening, Carol. That vehicle happens to be mine." She squinted at me like I'd just told her I was the King of England. "Yours? I highly doubt that. No resident here owns a government vehicle. And if you do, it doesn't belong in your driveway." My deputies exchanged awkward glances. I sighed. "Carol, I'm the county sheriff. That's my patrol SUV." Her eyebrows shot up. "You're the sheriff?" She sounded offended by the idea. "Well, sheriff or not, the whole rules are clear. No commercial or law enforcement vehicles in driveways overnight. It's bad for property value and community image. Now, I've dealt with criminals, drunks, and people in crisis. But nothing prepares you for an HOA president on a power trip. I could have flashed my badge, pulled rank, or ordered her to back off. But I didn't. I just nodded and said, "All right, Carol, I'll look into it." She huffed, turned on her heel, and strutted back to her house like she'd just won a war. My deputies were trying hard not to laugh. "You want us to take care of it, Sheriff?" Harris asked. I shook my head. "Nah, I'll handle it." The next few days, I thought about it, about how easily people misuse power when they think no one's watching. Carol wasn't the first HOA president I'd heard about doing this. But this was personal, my home, my community. And if she treated me like that, how many others had she bullied? So, I started asking around. Quietly, I talked to neighbors, people I hadn't had time to meet because of my long hours. What I found made my blood boil. One man, a retired veteran, had been fined $100 because his American flag was too large. Another neighbor got cited for leaving her trash bin out an extra hour. And an elderly woman named Mrs. Benson was threatened with a lien. Because her mailbox paint had faded, Carol ran the HOA like a mini dictatorship, enforcing rules selectively, favoring her friends, punishing anyone who challenged her. People were scared to speak up because she always had the bylaws on her side. I wasn't going to let that slide. When the next HOA meeting rolled around, I made sure to clear my schedule. I arrived 10 minutes early in full uniform. The room went silent the moment I walked in. You could hear the air conditioning hum. Carol sat at the front table, looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Well," she said tightly, "looks like someone's taking this a bit too seriously." I smiled. "Just thought I'd stop by, since we're discussing community matters. I heard there's been some confusion about the rules." She shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the other board members. "We operate strictly according to our bylaws, Sheriff. Everything is by the book. Is that so?" I said, pulling out a thick binder. "Because I've been reading your bylaws, Carol, and I noticed something interesting." I flipped open the pages and read aloud. "Vehicles used by public safety personnel in the course of duty are exempt from driveway restrictions." The room stirred. People started whispering. Carol's face turned red. "That's outdated language," she stammered. I closed the binder. "Maybe, but it's still valid. And it applies not just to me, but to any emergency personnel who live here." A man from the back raised his hand. "Does that mean you can't fine us for our security company's truck either?" "Exactly," I said. "That's part of the issue. Selective enforcement. People here have been fined, threatened, and harassed for minor things. That's not community. That's control." Carol tried to regain composure. "We're just maintaining standards." She snapped. "If we don't, this neighborhood will fall apart." I looked her in the eye. A neighborhood falls apart when people stop trusting each other, when rules matter more than respect. For a long moment, no one said a word. Then, Mrs. Benson Frail, gray-haired and trembling slightly, stood up. "Sheriff's right," she said softly. "I was too afraid to speak before, but this has gone too far. We're supposed to help each other, not hurt each other." Her words opened the floodgates, one by one. Neighbors stood up, sharing their stories. Fines for small decorations. Warnings for grass growing a half-inch too high. Even a single mother who'd been accused of running a business because she babysat kids on weekends. By the time everyone had spoken, the room was filled with a quiet anger. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that transforms. People were done being silent. I looked around and said, "I'm not here as your sheriff tonight. I'm here as your neighbor. And I think we deserve better." The vote that followed was unanimous. The HOA board was disbanded for review. A new committee was formed, made up of volunteers who actually cared about the community, not about control. Carol tried to protest, claiming it was all unconstitutional. But no one listened. For the first time in years, the people had spoken. After the meeting, as the crowd filtered out, Carol walked up to me, her face pale. "You embarrass me," she hissed. I looked at her calmly. "No, Carol, you did that yourself. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be treated unfairly." She turned and left without another word. That night, when I got home, I parked my SUV right in the middle of my driveway. I leaned against the hood, looking up at the stars. My porch light flicked on, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peaced out. The next morning, I found something on my porch. A small basket of muffins and a note from Mrs. Benson. It read, "Thank you for standing up for all of us. You reminded this neighborhood what real leadership looks like." I kept that note. Still have it. Over the next few weeks, things changed. The tension that used to hang in the air started to fade. Neighbors waved to each other again. Kids rode their bikes without parents worrying about HOA letters. People started helping one another, mowing lawns for the elderly, fixing mailboxes together, organizing small gatherings. And that's when I realized something. Power means nothing without empathy. You can write all the rules in the world, but if you forget the people behind them, those rules lose their meaning. Funny thing is, I didn't win that night because I was the sheriff. I won because I remembered that community isn't built on authority, it's built on understanding. Weeks later, I was sitting on my porch when Harris, the young deputy, drove by and waved. He laughed and shouted, "Still parked illegally, Sheriff?" I grinned. "Always." He shook his head and drove off, and I looked around the neighborhood. The same one that once felt like enemy territory and felt proud. Proud that we'd taken it back. The HOA called the cops on me for parking in my own driveway. But they didn't know the so-called suspect was the county sheriff. And maybe, Just maybe. That was what it took to remind everyone that respect isn't enforced with citations. It's built through kindness, fairness, and the courage to speak up when something's wrong. Now, every time I pull into that driveway after a long shift, I see kids waving, porch lights glowing, and neighbors who nod with genuine smiles. No more blinds twitching. No more fear. Just peace, the kind that comes when people finally remember that a good community doesn't need perfect lawns or strict rules. It just needs good, hard-start, silent stories updates, because every story has a truth worth sharing.